Good morning, Africans. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, every single person. Ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ káàsán, ẹ kú gbogbo ilé, ẹ kú ìdìnnà Ọlọ́run wa. Oh. Today, we have a subject we are treating, which is when you're dating a spiritual gifted person, what should be your expectation? When you are dating a spiritual person, gifted person, what should be the expectation? How would your relationship look like? What would be the challenges of your relationship? That's what we are discussing. Yes? Mama, are you talking to me? All right. What if she wakes up? Are you going far? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Where are my audience? Where are my audience? Where are my audiences? I'm waiting. Mumi dúró. Good morning. What should be or what is an expectation when you are dating a spiritual gifted person? Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Africans. There's a simple subject. That's what we are treating today. Kolade, have you taken your school bag? You are going to lesson, right? Bye-bye. When you date a spiritual gifted person, what are the expectations of your life? What is the reality of your world? How does your relationship seems to be? Busa, 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 busa. Ra, 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 ra. Ra, 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 ra. I'm supposed to be at the station right now for the person that I am waiting for, but I want them to be there because we are booked for 10 p.m. but African time, we go there late. Normally, African time, when they say 10, it simply means 11 a.m. If they say 10:30, it means 11:30, something like that, or 30-minute difference. This morning, what we are touching on is when you date a spiritual gifted person, how do that relationship actually look like? Now, I'm going to say things based off the fact that I know, I know that I am spiritually gifted. And when you say the word spiritual gifted, a lot of people assume that, oh, everyone is spiritual. And because everyone is spiritual, there is no difference. When we use the word everyone is spiritual, is that the existence of every mankind has to do with the fact that they are spiritual in a sense. But I'm asking a question. That what are the expectations? Because there are people who I realize in life that they are drawn to spiritual people, spiritual gifted people. Those of us who tend to be spiritually gifted people, we kind of find certain unique individuals who gravitate towards us. We are unlike, majority of us are unlike those who would naturally just go to party to seek for people. We most likely stay in our space and people seek for us. That's what happens when you're dating spiritual gifted people. They don't go around chasing people. People always come for them. Now, let me make this clear that everyone is spiritual, but not everyone is gifted spiritually. And when I use the word gifted spiritually, is that you are gifted spiritually inclined gifts. That means, for example, you may have a gift spiritually to see. You might have a gift to spiritually to have visions, to dream. There are different types of spiritual gifts. For me, I have a gift of seeing, vision. You can write few texts on my phone. I can chat with you, and with that, I can know a lot about people. People will say, "Oh, you're saying rubbish. You're saying garbage." It's not something you'll be expecting me to tell me. Oh, tell me now what I write. What is this? What is this? The problem a lot of people do not understand about spiritual gift is the idea that it is not meant to be tested. A spiritual gift is not meant to be tested. A spiritual gift is not logical. Some people think that if you want to test someone because the person tells you that they have certain spiritual gift, you have to test the spirit. No, you don't test it. Spirituals are not being tested. Spirituals knows when you are faking, and sometimes they stop appearing themselves when they realize that they are being tested. No, there's a passage of the Bible that says, "Test your Lord thy God with the tithe and offering if I would not open the..." That's not the kind of stuff we are talking about. That's religious text. In fact, you ask yourself, all these things that they say, God says this, God says this, God says this, God says this, who are the people recording? You heard it. And when God was saying it, was he saying it to the people of the Israelites? Was God saying it to the whole world, or was God saying it to a particular set of people? And who are the individuals receiving the message? And was it for that time? So when I tell you that I see, if you talk to me for 10 minutes, if you talk to me for 5 minutes, if you call me on phone and we chat and we talk and we discuss, I can tell you all the issues that are going on in your life. That is how it is. I didn't prepare for it. I didn't know how it happened. I've been like that since I was little. And I know that this statement sounds like a bragging statement. What I understand is this. In the idea of gifts have peculiar people that it serves. If I'm a good musician, if I'm an R&B singer, I don't need to sing for the dancehall people. I don't need to sing for a jazz people. I have to sing for the R&B people. If I'm a drummer, if I'm a native drummer, traditional drummer, and I'm gifted in that way, I don't have to play drums for those who don't listen to the kind of drum I listen to or I play. So each gift has peculiar people it serves. When you look at Moses, thank you for subscribing, Kasaja Fred. When you look at the call of Moses was for peculiar people. If you look at Elijah, it was for the people of the Israelite. Every gift of man is not for generous, like being general to everyone. My gift is not meant for everyone. Your gift is not meant for everyone. Your duty is to seek your audience and minister to your audience. When I speak about spiritual gifts, I speak to people who are spiritually inclined. They are conscious to a certain degree. So what am I saying? I was talking about the idea that everyone has different kind of gifts. But the reality is that those people who have gifts within them, these are spiritual gifts. And trust me, I know some people will say, all of us are all gifted spiritually. There's a difference between talents and there's a difference between spiritual gifts. Talents can serve anything. Spiritual gift is conscious. It's something that transcends. It's something that harmonizes. Talent is something that blows the mind of people away. Wow, 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 wow. Like the siren of cars, of police vehicle. Talent blows the mind of people away. Gifts raise the consciousness of people. And I know people who are spiritually gifted. But one of the things talent does is that talent opens doors for you in certain areas. Gift also does likewise the same. So there are similarities among them, but they are not the same. But one of the things that I know when it comes to relationship aspect is that if you make a decision to date somebody and that person tends to be spiritually gifted, there are things you need to watch out for. Because spiritually gifted people, they have certain individuals who gravitate towards them. In fact, it looks like a seasonal thing in their life. Maybe when they are young. And because of that, certain people would say, I want a woman who is spiritually inclined. I want a man who is spiritually inclined. And I ask those people question in my mind, like, do you really know what you want? Who are you in the first place to make a decision to say you want a spiritually inclined person? You have to be able to define yourself. Who am I? What do I want? And how do I perceive dating a spiritually gifted person? If you date a spiritually gifted person, and you say that is the person you want to have a long-term relationship with, one of the things that you need to know within your mind is that that person, you didn't date the person just because of you and that person. It is not because of you and that person. No one dates a spiritual gifted person because of you and that person. Understand that it is not talent. Because in the idea of talent, you show your skill out to the world. This is what talent does. You show your skill out to the world, and then it brings sources to you, or blessings to you, or finances to you, or something to you. That's what talent does. So if you date a talented drummer, he's going to play drums in many places and he's going to make money. And then when you are having relationship with that person, he's going to use that money to take good care of you and the person. He would use the finances to take good care of you and the family. That is what talent does. If you're dating a spiritually gifted person, most of the resources or blessings you have can only be distributed to majority of people. In fact, to those who does not even merit the gift. So if you're dating someone that is spiritually gifted, one thing you need to understand is that you are not dating the person because of sex. Your sexual expectation shouldn't be high. Because if your sexual expectation is so high, you will be disappointed. Why? A spiritual person, gifted person, cannot continuously, they don't start to adesosive. When it comes to money, they will be calling you anyhow. Just because I want to give him work now, he's calling me 247. Let me finish my program, I'll call you back. When you're dating a spiritually gifted person, you need to be aware that you can't date a spiritual gifted person because you want to have good sex with the person. Your sexual expectation shouldn't be too high, or be willing to understand that it is not always going to be met. Why? The reason is this. When a spiritual gifted person invests more or slide more into the sexual part of them excessively, they disconnect from the gift. There was a time I used to sing when I was thinking that I would be a musician. I was writing songs. Till date, I'm good at writing music. When I was writing songs, there was a producer I had during that time. That was around 2016, 2017. I had a producer then. If I wanted my producer to be able to produce and flow very well, what I know is whenever he has women, the moment he is able to get a lady and, finish doing things with ladies and the rest of it, the guy is going to produce beautiful songs, instruments. He will come up with different ideas. That's talent. A gifted person, spiritually gifted person, when they associate themselves excessively with the physical thing, with the fleshy things, the gifts separate themselves from them. In fact, they go against their gifts. Not sometimes when they excessively do it, they go against their gifts. The gift gives the flesh the moment to do its thing. The spiritual gifted people, the gift does not want to associate itself with the fleshy things. And I know those who do not understand what I'm saying, who are thinking that when I speak about this subject, I'm talking about religious gifts, or religious a gift? Religious idea of, oh, I can still wake up and pray in the morning. Rakabasha terebo mama mama. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about when a woman is fasting, a married woman is fasting, and she still make decisions to have sex with her husband. That's not what I'm saying. That's not spiritual gifts. You are praying and fasting, and you are not denying your husband. You are trying to be a good wife. And if you are the husband also, you are trying to be a good husband, but you are not spiritually gifted. Both of you are not spiritually gifted. Now, I'm not saying there's no possibility that one person might be spiritually gifted, but I'm saying if that is how you put it in your head, that someone can be praying, pleading to God, fasting, and at the same time having sex with who they have close relationship with, that's not spiritually gifted people. That's religious people. When you have a decision and you see that something propels you towards the idea of loving a spiritual gifted person, you need to understand that your sexual part is not going to be met every single time. Most especially if you have sexual needs. Most especially if you can't control your sexual urge. Most especially if you are a little bit greedy and you want certain things to yourself, because you will be denied. The idea of a spiritual gifted person created by nature and those who are conscious and aware is that they are here not to serve anyone. A spiritual gifted person is not there to serve one person, is there to serve the people. And I'm not talking about your pastors. I'm not talking about your religious leaders. Those are not the people I am talking about. I am talking of the idea that when you are spiritually gifted, your message, your embodiment has to do with a lot of people at a time. Remember, during the time of Samson in the Bible, Delilah had to entice Samson with sex. And the day they barbed Samson's head, his head was on the lap of Delilah. If the Bible was honest enough, it would tell us that, they just finished round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4. That was why Samson was weak till they shaved all his hair off. He did not know. Samson was gifted spiritually. So they say when the spirit come upon him, become very strong and he can defeat a lot of Philistines and the rest of it. But when he engaged sexually, till they barb off his hair, he did not know. Same thing is applicable when people tend to be spiritual gifted and maybe the idea of them seeing visions, maybe the idea of them having dreams. Some of them would try to be stubborn because sometimes, trust me, even those who are spiritually gifted, sometimes a lot of them they are humans at the end of the day. They might fall the prey of, sexual activities and the rest of it. But trust me, you don't fall sexually and also think at the same time that you have the same gifts like you used to have after you have anything to do with flesh. And I'm not saying fleshy things is a sin, no. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is a sin, no. I am saying there is a possibility that during the time of sex with a person, there is a spiritual covenant that disengage the spiritual gifts from both sides. And because it's separate the spiritual gifts, while you do those kind of things, you are just a mere man at that particular time. If you are inclined in the African traditions and culture, one of the best places to destroy a powerful man is when he's sexually active with his woman. If the law enforcement go after the person and they cannot bring the person down because they have to shoot him and it's not working, they have to do this and it's not working, everything they do is not working, and he's always getting away. Find a lady. That's what they mostly do. They kind of find ladies and they put a lady to set him up. And women always at the end of the day catch him. It is always that way. Why? Because when he's spiritually inclined, the only time he can get detached is when he's associating with sex. So what does that mean? It means that if you love someone and that person is spiritually inclined, you have to understand that that person would not most likely be sexually available if they're actually in their purpose. 2, one of the things you need to also be aware of is that you do not date a spiritually inclined person, and the only reason that you think is basically because of their success. You think that their success means a lot to them and to you at the same time. Their success is not meant for them. Their success is meant for everyone to share. I have few farms that I operate, and the moment it is time for harvests in some of my plantations and the rest, the moment we are harvesting, people are taking their own. If I take that thing that I harvest and I bring it home to myself without sharing to people, my conscience begins to punch me, beat the hell out of me. 3 days, 4 days. And so I already understood that I don't want to engage with such battle. And some people will say, oh, is it a ritual that you have to give to people and the rest of it? The reason is that the day you become spiritually inclined, the day you realize that you are everybody and everybody is you. The day you begin to understand that all this flesh, all these vessels, all these fights, all these unnecessary things we have among ourselves, discrimination, identity, racism, everything does not matter at all. They are just on a superficial level. Everything here is superficial. But when you go and you transcend a little bit, you realize that you are all of them and all of them are you. You don't need to think that there's a God, there's a creator, there's a builder, there's one thing or the other. You naturally begin to know that you are part of everyone. This is just a vessel. The flesh is just a vessel that captures an amount of information, oxygen, and the rest of it. But the air I breathe, the air you breathe, they are all the same. The words I say, the words you say, they are both powerful. They both have the same power in the tongue, in the spiritual force. They both move. I don't think anybody is perceiving nitrogen as a human being. I think everybody takes in oxygen. You realize that the plants are the same with you. You realize that the animals, regardless of their ignorance, are the same with you. The only thing that differentiates you with them is that you are more conscious. They have also received life inside of them, but not to the conscious part of them. That doesn't mean they are not conscious. That doesn't mean they are not aware. That doesn't mean they don't know what is going on. They know everything that is going on, but they are not so much conscious because they live under the mentality of survival. And that means they truly function fully on the way they can perceive things, which is on the third dimension. Some people would say, oh, the same thing people say about if you're being spiritually inclined simply means you might just be experiencing something and you might just be tripping. And because you're tripping, maybe you take DMT, ayahuasca, or you take weed and the rest of it, and you feel relaxed and happy. That means you are most likely thinking the same thing like every other person. But that's a lie. That's a fallacy. Just because you trip and you are experiencing a lot of joyful chemicals within your body, that is not spirituality. That is an experience. That is a delusional mind that puts the body in a state of bliss. That's not spirituality. Just because you are in the state of bliss, just because you have been able to take substance that take you to this place of bliss, doesn't mean you are spiritually inclined. In fact, I will put it to you today. You may agree and you may disagree. Just because you know how to meditate does not mean you are spiritually inclined. Because meditation itself only teaches you about the awareness of what is going on within your body. It is paying attention to your feelings, to your thoughts, to your mind. It doesn't mean you're spiritually inclined. When you're spiritually inclined, you might be seeing with the physical eyes, but there's something inside of you that also have a spiritual eyes to it. And the spiritual eyes is that it has not everything to do with you. Spiritual people has not everything to do with them. It has everything to do with everyone. The problem is, it is easy for people to pretend like they are spiritually inclined. That's the reason why you see religious individuals mesmerized with people through this pretense. When I say things to people and I'm talking to people, I know exactly how they would feel by the words of my mouth. I am very conscious and aware of how they are feeling. Why? Because I'm spiritually inclined. It's like I can embody everything they embody. If their heart is breaking, my heart can break at the same time. That's what it means to be spiritually inclined. I can see beyond today. I can see where you are coming from. There are all kinds of spiritual gifts. Maybe I'm only speaking on my own part. But trust me, as much as you see them to be those who they are like a tree that does not go to other people and say, oh, come under me and relax. There are people who find solace or find peace going on with those who are spiritually inclined, because when you come towards them, you find peace being around them. When you get close to someone who is spiritually inclined, you find peace around them. So if you make a decision to date someone and you say, oh, I am aware that this person is spiritually inclined, be very certain and bear it at the back of your mind that that individual is not there to serve you alone. The relationship is not basically meant for you and that person. Your relationship with that person must as well be a service to the world. No, sometimes when I look into my life and I see the story of my life, I always feel like it's not feeling. I know it is just a thing to serve people. I don't think there's anything too unique about it. I think the blessing of a spiritual person is to just see that every other person are being freed of the burden that they are carrying on their shoulder. Now, there are dimensions to spirituality. And one thing I learned along my spiritual journey in your spiritual journey, if you're experiencing anything like spiritual journey, and trust me, if you're going through spiritual journey in your life, you will most likely be confused. Why am I gravitating towards something like this? Why am I gravitating towards something like this? It has everything to do with you. It doesn't have everything to do with you. It has everything to do with people. But sometimes in today's world, we have taught people to think only about themselves. And that's fine. For you to be able to compete in the real world, maybe that's fine. But while I was going towards my spiritual journey, I realized one thing. Spirituality keeps emphasizing on one thing. You know nothing. You know nothing. You know nothing. It wants to teach you. It wants to tell you things. But in your spiritual ways, it's there's something that comes that tests you and say, know this information. But when you know the information and you think that you have known it all, and you're still on that part of your spiritual journey, life will just show you and tell you, oh, you're stupid. You never knew anything. That means you learn and you unlearn. You learn and you unlearn. It is roller coaster. That means what your spiritual journey always takes you to, until I get to a point before I was able to flow with my spiritual path, until I get to a point to realize that I would never know it. The teachings and the information and the knowledge and the understanding comes at a time. It is like a story. The story comes in a season. And the information for a season is going to differ from the next season and the next time. If you hold on so much to the information you have right now, and you make a principle and philosophy out of it, when the next season comes, if you are not open to the spiritual information or knowledge that is needed for that time, and you still hold on to the information and knowledge that you had in the first part, you most likely will be your hindrance, your own hindrance, standing in front of you. It is more reason why when I come to people, I let them understand that do not take me as someone who knows anything. I know nothing. Enlightened one will say, he who knows he knows nothing. That means you can only tap to a particular information and knowledge at a particular time. And at some point, when a season and a story begins to change, the universe is showing you to be open to the possibilities of the next knowledge. One of the things about spirituality is this: if you are not careful, if you make a decision to date someone who is spiritually inclined, you must know that you also have a burden to bear. And the burden you have to bear is the burden of the physical world. For example, my beautiful wife is religious. She prays, she goes to church, she does everything that is expected of a religious person. I am spiritually inclined. I don't pray like a religious person. I don't do a lot of things, but she understands my gifts and she understands my time. The only thing that actually concerns me that much is the idea of the things I want to do to serve others, including I and my family, but mostly everyone. Because in my world, everyone are the same. Everyone as important as my people. That's how I view it. So she quickly was able to blend in to understand that, oh, when I have a call or a message or something, regardless of my tight schedule, I still find a way to come in to do what is in my spirit at that particular time. For example, sometimes when I make decisions to come on live and to discuss about certain subjects and the rest of it, some of those times I could use them to be with my wife or with my children. But I'm like, this one is also very important. The only difference of mine is that I've been able to know how to blend in both, which is the idea of I love my children and I have to come out of that part of my spiritual self sometimes and come into the world of reality. And in the real world, I understand that I have some responsibilities. Because trust me, when you are so spiritually inclined, it is rare for you to gravitate towards material things. It is rare. If not for YouTube, policies and the rest of it, I know how I will be whenever I come live. Because physical things does not intrigue a spiritual person. So sometimes when people tell me like, oh, come, let's take you to a different country, you have a gift, it's like, if you're telling me to come to an environment because there's enjoyable things in that environment, it seems as if you're pushing me away to even think of going to that particular place. And the question is, you ask yourself, is it that spiritual people don't like to enjoy themselves? I think it's because if you are spiritually inclined, you enjoy yourself regardless of what you eat. Now, I'm not saying you don't eat healthy. I'm saying you are so comfortable with everything that is around you that you're not looking at one particular thing that is going to inspire you that is based off material things. And all these things I just mentioned, if you are that kind of person who you are in so much in love with, I want the world to know me, I want the world to see me as a flashy kind of person, I want the world to acknowledge me and my husband, and maybe because you see a gift between your husband or your wife or the rest of it, and then because you see that they are spiritually inclined and you think sometimes a spiritual inclined person might get blessed along the line. And that means that there's a season that will come in his life and it might be picked off from that season and his life will flourish forward. As a lady, as a man, if you're with that person, you have to ask yourself, what do you want? Because if care is not taken, you will be an enemy to the gifts of the spiritual person. Now, those who are spiritual themselves should also know or note that it is their responsibility to know who they bring into their life. Some people are very ignorant. Some people, in the name of spirituality, and because they are so dedicated to their spiritual path, they ignore some unnecessary information. If you also follow so much on your spiritual path and you neglect your reality, you will be broken. You will be destroyed. Because one of the struggle of most spiritual people is we understand that the world, and I think the better you accept it as a spiritual person. A spiritual man who neglects reality neglects their mission also. Whatever you attach yourself to as a spiritual individual, it becomes your physical responsibility. Because most times, most spiritual people think that they always have a message for the world, and the world is this way, and they are the one in the middle of the divine. If you have such mentality, you might be experiencing Kulu mentality. As a spiritual man, you have a responsibility, and your responsibility is that whatever you attach to your reality, you have to be able to cut out of your spirituality and take care of what is in your reality. Some people are so spiritually inclined, they have husband, they have wife or something like that, they have children, but they focus so much on the gifts that has been given to them to message the world, to inspire the world, to change the world, to harmonize the world, and they neglect the fact that they have certain responsibility that have been given. The moment it becomes biological, the moment it becomes a physical experience, when you neglect those things, you will be a failed and miserable spiritual individual. Because how would you be a complete gift to humanity if you cannot take good care of those things in your reality? Understand that while you try to raise the consciousness and the awareness of people, you have to be conscious yourself and be aware of your own reality. Because the spiritual part of every gifted person is passing a message and also selling a product. The product is not physical. The product is spiritual, is consciousness, is love. But love, in a complete sense, should not ignore the things that matters to it and let it decay. So some of us are so spiritually inclined that we focus on raising the consciousness of everyone because we believe we are part of everyone, and then we neglect what has been given to us as our responsibility, and before you know, they got decayed. Part of the people in the scripture are people like Eli. When you see what happened in the life of Eli, it tells you a lot. Part of the things you see are like people like David. David was gifted and he spoke to God and is spiritually inclined in certain areas, even though he falls for a lot of sin and he neglects raising good children, and see what happened in his life. Some people are always happy to jump on the life of David. Yes, David. The question is, look at the life of David. Who wants their life to be like the life of David? It's not a good life. I do not pray for my enemy to have the experience of David in their life. Sometimes those people we actually call heroes. If you know what they've been through, you would never wish to be a hero like them. The life of David is good in the book of the Bible. It is not palatable for anyone to experience. Seeing all your children die, because you fail your responsibility. You serve the Israelites, you ignore your biological children. They begin to cut each other like barbecue. So why we raise your consciousness and why we tell you that you have to be aware and conscious and move into the spiritual part rather than focusing on the religious part. Go and get into the divine and the rest of it. When most people get there and they start approaching it, sometimes you so much focus on the spiritual part when you ignore every other thing. Everything you have worked for in your life will be destroyed. It will be destroyed. No wonder you see some of all these Catholic people who do father and the rest of it. Most of them don't want to have children. Most of them don't want to have any of all these things. Though, in my own perception and in my opinion, in the spiritual ground, there is something like growth. And you can be a child in the spiritual world. Just like the physical world, we get old. In the spiritual world, there's only growth. There's no such thing as old in spiritual world, but there's what we call growth. And when you are in level 1 and you cannot go to level 3 or level 4 or level 2, you will be stuck in the level 1, thinking that that level 1 is all that has exists and all that will be. Opening to the possibility of growing in the spiritual way is a sense that you are willing to accept what the divine or the universe or the source or knowledge or whatever is willing to give to you at some point. Because even on the spiritual sense, you are not so much in control of everything. So if you're not so much in control of the spiritual sense, there are only limited things you can control in the spiritual sense. Then you should also understand that in the physical sense, you can control a lot. The reason why even in the physical realm to what you can control. With that said, I hope I've been able to convince and not to confuse you that that which is spiritual and that which engage with spiritual and that which is looking to be spiritual. My wife forgot that I have not connected to my router. She took her router out until I connected to mine. So with that being said, I hope I've been able to convince and not to confuse you that while you seek after those who are spiritually inclined, always remember that there's a physical reality. Never get delusional. Because if you get delusional, you will pay the price for your delusion. A lot of women, a lot of men, a lot of people have been delusional on many things, and they've subsequently paid the price for it. Be careful to understand the difference between spirituality and delusion, and to understand that even in the spiritual world, there's a responsibility of the physical world. If you do not take care of your physical experience and you focus on your spiritual experience, the world would neglect you. The world will be disappointed in you. Every story you are trying to tell would be a waste. every good you have inside of you will be abandoned. Maybe you will touch few life, but trust me, it might not all make sense at the end of the day. Well, I'm about to take my bait. Like I told you guys yesterday that I'm going to the station. I need to go sort out some things for some of my brethren who are facing few challenges. With that being said, I'll be back in the evening. I hope to close late, very early today. We shouldn't stay too long. I'll be back soon. Not be me get problem, but we have to do what we have to do as people. Peace be unto you. Have a great day. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Kasajida Fred, for subscribing. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye for now.